Hi friends, this is Anne-Marie and I wanted to share with you some very exciting news that I now have my very first book published. Here it is. It's called The Ripple of Awakening, a Mighty Companion on the Spiritual Awakening Journey. And I really wanted to just give you a little bit of information about how it could support you, what it's about, the journey that I've been on myself to help me write this from my heart to support people. And really, I think this is the book. Well, I know this is the book that I was craving when I was going through my own spiritual awakening, when I was really in that dark place, the dark night of the soul, where my life had completely fallen apart. Nothing looked the same, and it hurt a lot. Like it was like hell. And basically, I was being dismantled, if you like, the identity of Anne-Marie, of who I thought she was. And at that point in my life, it was difficult. I'd been told that I was having a spiritual awakening, but to be fair, I didn't really truly understand what that meant. And I certainly wasn't thinking, oh, great, I'm having a spiritual awakening. That was the last thing I was thinking because, as I say, it was a very painful time. So let's roll back a few years before the dark night of the soul. And for me, I had a very normal, conventional life. I was married and had two children, young children, and I thought this was how life was meant to be. On paper, I had everything. I had a loving husband, beautiful kids, wonderful home, supportive family, lived in a nice area. But a few things had happened to crush me, I guess is the word I want to use, which I wouldn't have said that at the time because I had no concept of that, because I was in a lot of grief, and I was surviving. I certainly was not thriving. But I thought that's how life was supposed to be. You just got on with your lot, and I had no concept that I could have a joyful, carefree, happy, abundant life. I thought you had to strive for things and work hard, and that it was normal to have tough times. And of course, yes, we all have tough times, yes. But it's how we deal with them and it's how we perceive them. And I think that's the shift that's happened for me through my awakening. And that's what I want to help people to realize too, and to understand that yes, these things happen, but we do not have to be defined by the traumas or the bereavements or the breakdown of a marriage or loss of a job or an illness. All these things happen. I don't think anyone escapes that. But if we don't have the resources and the awareness of what's really happening, it can be very tricky to negotiate on that journey. So, in summary, the book is about my awakening, how that came about. I'm very honest, I'm very real, I'm very raw. I don't hide anything in the book at all, because that wouldn't be fair. I have to just be authentic and transparent about how the unfolding happens for me. And it was very painful at times, not only physically, but emotionally. And I had no idea of how to deal with emotions. That was a big thing for me, to feel. Oh boy, yeah, to truly let myself feel and give myself permission to go into these emotions and these feelings that I'd suppressed for many, many, many years. And I think many of us are like that. We haven't had the upbringing or the people around us that could support us to express our feelings and our emotions. And And that's no blame and that's no judgment. It's just how it is for many of us. So that was part of my awakening, because I was holding on for dear life, because I thought that's what you did. You were strong and you got on with it, and life's tough, so just get on. So I didn't want to crumble. I didn't want to surrender. But there came a point in my life, which in the book and in my life I call the falling, which was the start of my spiritual awakening, but I didn't know it at the time. I had no concept of that. And that was about 16, 17 years ago or so. And really what had happened was I'd suppressed a lot of emotions, as I said. Got on in my life the best way I could. But so what happened with the falling was both my kids were quite young, 2 children under 5. I was doing my usual, as I describe, headless chicken kind of act, busyness, cleaning, sorting things out. I very rarely gave myself permission to stop, to just rest. I just didn't do that. That wasn't in my mindset. And when you have young children, to be honest, you don't have a lot of time for that. So I was very much on the hamster wheel. And this particular day, I never forget it. I was standing in my bedroom doing whatever I was doing. The kids were in the house, and this feeling came over me, and it was like I was standing at the edge of a precipice, about to literally fall into this cavernous nothingness, into my death. And it completely freaked me out. I was, in an altered state. I think, you go into that fight or flight response when these kind of things happen, which I'd never experienced before, so I didn't know what was happening. And it scared the hell out of me. It was almost like an out-of-body experience as well, which I had never had before, which I was not comfortable with because I was a control freak. So feeling like I was losing control was not acceptable, but it was happening. And in those moments of real stress and anxiety, all the normal bodily functions take over of the fight or flight response, which is what happened. But then I screamed out something like, help, stop, I can't do this anymore, I've had enough. And I never did anything like that, but I was desperate. I was so frightened. And to whom I was screaming to, I had no idea, no concept, because I had no awareness of other realms, of spirit, of God, of anything loving and supportive. To me, everything was black and white. And so that was a point, though, that was the shift in my life, which I wasn't aware of quite at that time. I pulled myself together. I sort of didn't know what had happened, after that experience. And the kids were in the house, so I knew I had to be there for them, of course. It was such an uncomfortable feeling, and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell a soul, because I just felt a complete crazy woman. So I got on with my life, but then a series of events, which I describe in the book, which I call like a domino effect, that the universe was obviously lining up for me, started to happen. And that really changed the whole trajectory of my life. And it was only maybe 4 or 5 years after the falling when I looked back and I could see, oh my God, when that incident happened, that's when things started to shift and, as I say, took me in a completely different direction. But I hadn't joined the dots by then. It took me some time to see that actual cry for help had been heard. It had been heard. And again, by whom I had no concept of then. But that's partly what this book is about. It's helping people to realise that there is a presence, there is a consciousness. Call it whatever you will, God, angels, universe, higher power. It doesn't matter what you call it, but it's there. And it loves you. It wants to support you. It wants to help you. And that was then the beginning of my awakening to that love, to that source of everything. But I was a hard nut to crack, I can tell you, because, as I say, I was black and white. So the universe met me where I was every step of the way and started to lead me to training, to books, to people, to spiritual people, which was not on my radar ever before. And a whole new world literally started to unfold. And it wasn't always easy at all, because it was a dismantling of all the old concepts that I had made about who I thought I was, what the world was, how people should behave. And that, in theory, really is what a spiritual awakening is. And I interviewed several people about their own experience of their spiritual awakening as well, and have included that in the book, because I think it's really important to get different angles, different insights of what happened to people. But at the core, there's similar themes and traits and phases and stages that seem very, very common for people who are awakening. And that's why I wanted to write this book and include those interviews and my own experience to help the reader understand what that is and how that looks. So I'm just going to give you a few key topics that I cover in the book. And basically, for me, it was undoing my playing small. I was very shy, inferior, certainly didn't want to be seen or heard. So that was part of it, going from littleness to magnitude, if you like, to magnificence, which is how God sees us. And talking of that three-letter word, that was a massive undoing for me. It took years. I couldn't even say the word God without a visceral response of distaste, shall we say. So I had, as I say, a massive journey of undoing my story around God, and came to a beautiful awareness that those three letters are just ink making shapes on a piece of paper. Those words are very loaded. The word is very loaded. But I completely know that when I woke up to God, as I say, after a long journey, I came home. I came home. And I had to learn to open my heart to that love, to that vastness, to that joy, to undo my belief around death as well. That was massive, and believing I'm a body. And it's very radical, because most of us believe this body is who we are. But spirit, by its nature, is not in form. And so to be spiritual and to have a spiritual awakening, we are tapping into that source, which is eternal and infinite, and is nothing to do with this physical form. But on that journey to realizing that, we have to learn to look after this form, if you like, self-care. I talk about that in the book, how it's so important to nurture ourselves, look after ourselves. There's physical and emotional changes that happen within the form as we're waking up, which can be very distressing and uncomfortable. So I talk about those and how to manage those. I introduce how a spiritual practice is key. So meditation, prayer, time to be in nature, to express yourself. That was a very, very big part of my journey, and a very joyful part eventually when I let that in. Also, the death thing, because that I had so much grief. Oh my God, grief is so toxic to the system, to the mind, and it's just like I was existing, I wasn't living, but as I say, I thought that was normal. So the book helps us to realize, no, that is not normal. I also talk about the difference between our ego and our true self, and how that looks, and how we can start to undo the old concepts of the ego. I talk about the journey of looking at inner child healing, also 12-step program, which I entered as well for codependency, to help me understand what healthy and loving, true loving relationships are. And talking of love, I really wanted to know what love was. And I came to discover, oh my goodness, such a truth. And it's not romantic love, it's the love with a big L that is available to every single person, regardless of what they think they've done or not done. It's who we are. And it's, as I say, it's eternal, and we are adored, and we are loved always. And that is what we're tapping into. And that's what I help the reader to realize. And part of that is also learning how to forgive. And the forgiveness I talk about is not just letting someone off the hook, it's way bigger than that. And I actually describe it in the book as being more important than self-care and eating healthily and exercising. Because if we hold on to toxic thoughts and grievances and hatred and anger, it literally eats away. And honest to God, that's what I've learned when I've found a journey and a process of how to truly forgive, which I include in the book. That saved my life. Absolutely saved my life. And it's key to living a joyous life. So I discuss that as well. And really also looking at our true purpose, which I came to find on that journey, which I, Anne-Marie, was not looking for, I can assure you. But as I say, when I learned to trust and open up my intuition, my natural psychic abilities, which we all have, it started to then point me in the direction and be my guide instead of the old ego, fear-based concepts. So that's a brief summary of what my book is offering. It's from my heart. It was guided. And I really pray that whoever reads the book gets and feels the love that's behind the words. Because the words are great, but it's what's behind them and the guiding light that's behind that, that's available to everyone, to you right now. But we've got to learn to open our mind, to surrender, to let this love be our main guide, as I say. And now that's, for me, is how I live my life. It's completely changed beyond all recognition, as I have. And I am so grateful for the journey. But it was tough at times, and I'm not going to paint a pretty picture. As I said to you, it was really tough. But there was light calling me forth every day. And so really that is what it's about. And it's a hand to hold. And to me that's really important, and we need to build trust and have a hand to hold when we're in the darkness. So that is my gift to the world. I feel really blessed that I can offer this to people, to help people, because I know what it feels like when we're really lost. So do get in touch if you'd like a copy yourself, and I can send you a signed copy, which I'd be delighted to do. So I hope you step on your path and accept the light and feel the ripple that will take you on the most beautiful, joyous journey that you could ever imagine. So lots of love. Thank you so much. Namaste.